Welcome back to the Confident Speaking Podcast. As always, I'm Jessica. If you're new here, just so you know, we upload a brand new video to help you learn English every single day. Our goal is to help you become fluent and confident in English as quickly as possible. Now, do you enjoy your job? Or should I ask, do you enjoy your work? How was the wedding? Or is it, how is the marriage? The English language is full of confusing words that learners frequently mix up. Let's clear that up. Today, you will master the use of these 21 tricky but extremely common English nouns. Okay, let's dive in. First, let's tackle job and work, and we'll do it with a quick quiz. Here's the sentence. She applied for a new, at the law firm. The correct word is job. Did you guess right? You applied for a new job because a job refers to a specific official role or position that a person holds for payment. Work, in contrast, is the general concept of the effort, tasks, and labor you perform. It's not the title itself. Let me share a personal observation from my years of teaching English. Many of my students from non-English speaking countries struggle with this distinction because in their native languages, there might be only one word that covers both concepts. I remember a student from Brazil who consistently said, "I'm looking for a new work," instead of, "I'm looking for a new job." This is incredibly common, and I've noticed that students from Romance language backgrounds particularly struggle with this because Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian have similar structures where one word covers both meanings. The grammatical difference is crucial here. Job is a countable noun. You can have one job, two jobs, three jobs. But work is uncountable. You cannot say one work or many works when referring to employment. This is similar to words like water or information. You wouldn't say one water or many informations. For example, asking, "Do you like your job?" is about that specific position, the company, the salary, the benefits, the office environment. If you ask, "Do you like your work?" the focus shifts more to the tasks you perform, the actual activities, the intellectual challenges, the physical demands. However, in casual conversation, native speakers often use these interchangeably, which adds to the confusion for learners. Here's a critical difference. You can never say, "She got a new work." That is incorrect. The only right way to say it is, "She got a new job." This is because work is an uncountable noun. You can't place a or an before it. Think of it like this. You would say, "I have so much work to do." Work remains singular because it's a collective concept. And remember, work is also a verb. You could say, "Right now, I'm working 2 jobs to make ends meet," which means earning just enough money to live on. This dual nature of work as both noun and verb creates additional complexity for learners. In my experience teaching professionals, I've found that understanding context helps tremendously. When someone asks, "How's work?" at a party, they're usually asking about your overall professional life, both your job and your work. But in a job interview, these distinctions become more important. An interviewer might ask, "What kind of work do you enjoy?" Focusing on tasks and activities, versus "What kind of job are you looking for?" Focusing on the role and position. Let's try one more quiz. He's looking for new, but finding a good, takes time. What's your answer? He's looking for new work, but finding a good job takes time. Next up, story and history. I hear these two confused all the time, and it's one of my biggest pet peeves as an English teacher. Let's test your knowledge. The book is based on real, not fiction. The answer is history. A story is a narrative or an account of events that can be either true or fabricated, usually told for entertainment or to convey information. History, however, is the factual, documented record of past events. This distinction is fundamental to understanding how English speakers think about truth and narrative. What fascinates me about this confusion is that it often reflects deeper cultural differences in how we perceive truth and storytelling. In my years of teaching, I've noticed that students from cultures with strong oral traditions sometimes struggle more with this distinction because, in their experience, stories and historical accounts have been intertwined for generations. I recall working with a student from West Africa who told me beautiful folk tales that contained real historical elements. And she initially didn't understand why we needed to separate story from history in English. This taught me that the English distinction is quite rigid compared to other languages and cultures. For instance, you could say, the story of the company dates back to 1920. This implies you'll hear a tale with characters, plot points, dramatic developments, and narrative structure, even if it's all true. But if you said the history of this company dates back to 1920, you would expect facts, dates, official records, documented evidence, and chronological accuracy. The listener's expectations change completely based on which word you choose. You can tell a story, as in, he told an amazing story about his trip to Africa. The emphasis is on the narrative quality, how engaging it was, how well it was told, the emotional impact. With history, you might learn about, read, study, or discover the history of something. The emphasis is on factual learning and understanding. Here's another layer of complexity I've observed. The phrase, "that's his story," implies skepticism. We're not sure if it's true. But "that's history" implies established fact. These idiomatic uses reveal the deeper cultural meanings embedded in these words. How about this quiz? He told a funny, but it had nothing to do with actual... This should be simple. He told a funny story, but it had nothing to do with actual history.
Third, let's look at wedding and marriage. Do they give you trouble? Try this question. Were you invited to their... You were invited to their wedding. A wedding is the ceremony, the single event where two people get married. It happens on a specific date, at a specific location. A marriage is the ongoing legal and personal relationship that exists after the wedding. This distinction often creates amusing misunderstandings that I've witnessed countless times. I remember a student who excitedly told me she was going to her friend's marriage next weekend. While technically not wrong, she was going to witness the beginning of a marriage, it sounded odd to native speakers who would say wedding. The temporal aspect is key here, and it's something that many language textbooks don't emphasize enough. You can ask, when was your wedding? Because it's a past event with a specific date. But you can't ask, when was your marriage? Because it's a state of being, not a single event. To get that information, you'd have to rephrase the question to, when did you get married? Or, how long have you been married? This extends to other verbs and expressions. You plan a wedding, attend a wedding, or have a wedding. But you have a marriage, work on your marriage, or celebrate your marriage. The verbs naturally align with whether we're talking about an event or a relationship. Consider this. Their wedding didn't last long, means the ceremony itself was short, maybe only an hour or two. But their marriage didn't last long, means their relationship ended and they are no longer together. The implications are completely different. I've noticed this confusion is particularly common among students whose native languages use the same word for both concepts. In some languages, the word for the ceremony and the relationship are identical, which makes perfect sense from a logical standpoint, but creates challenges when learning English. Another interesting observation, we have many adjectives that work with wedding, beautiful, expensive, small, outdoor, traditional, that don't work well with marriage. And marriage takes different adjectives. Happy, successful, difficult, long, strong. That would sound strange with wedding. Final quiz for this pair. Their was beautiful, but their marriage has been full of challenges. The answer is, their wedding was beautiful, but their marriage has been full of challenges.
Now, for two nouns whose main confusion lies in pronunciation and spelling, so let me be extra careful here. The Sahara is the largest in the world. Which one is it? The word with one S, desert, refers to a dry, arid land with very little rain, which is our answer. The word with two S's, dessert, is the sweet course you eat after a meal. This is perhaps the most frequently misspelled pair in English, and I've developed a little memory trick that I share with all my students. Think of dessert as having two S's because you want seconds of dessert. The desert has one S because you definitely don't want seconds of hot, dry sand. Let's nail the pronunciation. For the dry land, the stress is on the first syllable, desert. For the sweet treat, the stress is on the second syllable, dessert. This pronunciation difference is crucial, and I found that students who master the stress patterns rarely confuse these words in speech. The interesting thing about these words is that they reveal something about English spelling patterns that frustrates many learners. Why should two completely unrelated words look so similar? I explained to my students that this is part of English's complex history. Words borrowed from different languages at different times, sometimes with similar spellings that developed coincidentally. I remember working with a French student who initially had no problem with these words because French has similar distinctions, désert versus dessert. But then she started confusing them in English because she was overthinking the spelling differences. Sometimes knowing another language can help, but sometimes it creates interference. Let's practice with this sentence. After crossing the desert, we enjoyed a delicious dessert. Notice how the context helps. You cross a geographic feature, desert, and you eat food, dessert. In my experience, students who struggle with these words often benefit from creating strong mental images. I encourage them to picture themselves in the Sahara Desert, hot, sandy, one S, and then picture themselves eating strawberry ice cream, sweet, delicious, two S's for seconds.
Number 5 is price and cost. Here's your quiz. The of studying abroad is high when you factor in tuition, housing, food, and transportation. In this context, the correct word is cost. The price is the specific amount of money you pay for a single item, like the number on a price tag. The cost refers to the total sum of all expenses involved, including hidden factors, opportunity costs, and long-term implications. This distinction is particularly important in business English, and I've seen many professionals struggle with it in meetings and presentations. The confusion often stems from the fact that in casual conversation, native speakers sometimes use these interchangeably, but in formal or business contexts, the distinction matters a lot. Let me share a real example from my corporate training sessions. A marketing director once presented a proposal saying the price of this new software is $10,000 per year. Her CEO corrected her. That's the price of the license, but what's the total cost, including training, implementation, and support? The CEO understood that cost encompasses everything needed to make the software functional, while price was just the vendor's asking price. In a store, you might ask, "How much does this cost?" where cost is a verb. You would not ask, "How much does this price?" because price is a noun. Instead, you'd ask, "What is the price of the laptop?" You could also ask, "What is the total cost of the laptop?" which implies you want to know the price plus taxes, warranties, delivery fees, and any other associated expenses. The economic implications are significant too. When economists talk about the cost of something, they often include opportunity cost, what you give up to get something else. But the price is simply the monetary exchange value. This is why we say the cost of war, including human lives, resources, and long-term consequences, but the price of oil, the monetary value per barrel. I found that students from countries with different economic systems sometimes struggle with this distinction because their experience with pricing and costs might be different. In some economies, the advertised price is what you pay, period. In others, there are always additional costs to consider. Let's review with a quiz. The of the car was low, but the long-term of insurance and maintenance is high. The answer? The price of the car was low, but the long-term cost of insurance and maintenance is high.
Number 6. Chance and opportunity. This job offer is a great for your career. You need the word opportunity. A chance is simply a possibility or probability of something happening, which is often neutral or statistical. An opportunity is a favorable set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something. It has a positive, optimistic feeling. The emotional connotation here is crucial, and it's something that many grammar books don't adequately explain. I've been teaching this distinction for over a decade, and I've noticed that students who understand the emotional difference rarely confuse these words. Chance is mathematical, neutral, sometimes even negative. You'd say, there's a 30% chance of rain tomorrow, not an opportunity for rain, unless you're a farmer in a drought. You can have a slight chance, a good chance, or an excellent chance of getting the job, but these are still probability statements. Opportunity, however, carries hope and potential. But if you get the job, you'd say, this job is a great opportunity. We often pair opportunity with positive words like amazing, perfect, golden, once in a lifetime, or incredible. You rarely hear someone say terrible opportunity. It's almost contradictory. I remember working with a Russian student who initially used these words interchangeably because Russian has one word that covers both concepts. She would say things like, I have a good opportunity, it will rain tomorrow, which confused her American colleagues. Through practice, she learned that opportunities are things you take advantage of or seize, while chances are things you calculate or consider. There's also a grammatical pattern difference. We take advantage of opportunities, seize opportunities, create opportunities, or miss opportunities. But we have chances, calculate chances, improve our chances, or take chances, meaning to risk something. The business world makes this distinction very clear. In job interviews, you'll hear, this position offers opportunities for growth and advancement. Positive, something you can actively pursue, but you might also hear, there's a good chance we'll expand internationally next year. Probability, something that might happen. Quiz time. This scholarship is a real and you have no of winning the lottery. The answer is, this scholarship is a real opportunity, and you have no chance of winning the lottery.
Number 7, loan and debt. We took out to buy the car. You take out a loan. A loan is a specific sum of money that is borrowed and must be repaid, usually with interest and specific terms. Debt is the total amount of money you owe to all creditors combined. This financial distinction is incredibly important, especially for students planning to study in English-speaking countries where student loans are common. I've counseled many international students who confused these terms and consequently misunderstood important financial information. The relationship is straightforward. You take out a loan, but you have debt. You have debt because you took out one or more loans, but you might also have debt from credit cards, unpaid bills, or other financial obligations. A loan is a specific financial instrument. Debt is your overall financial liability. Debt is an uncountable noun. So much debt, a lot of debt, overwhelming debt, while loan is countable. One loan, several loans, multiple loans. This grammatical difference reflects their conceptual difference. Loans are individual agreements, while debt is a cumulative condition. Notice the pronunciation of debt. The B is silent. It sounds like debt. This silent letter trips up many students, and I always make sure to practice this pronunciation extensively. The word comes from Latin debitum, and over centuries of linguistic evolution, the B became silent in English pronunciation while remaining in the spelling. From a cultural perspective, attitudes toward loans and debt vary greatly around the world. In some cultures, taking loans is seen as a normal part of financial planning, like student loans or mortgages in the U.S. In other cultures, debt is more stigmatized. Understanding these words correctly helps international students navigate these cultural and financial differences. I once had a student from a country where personal loans are uncommon tell me she was applying for debt to pay for her education. While she meant she was applying for a student loan, her phrasing made it sound like she was seeking trouble. We spent considerable time clarifying that you apply for loans, which may result in debt, but you never apply for debt itself. Here's the quiz. The helped him buy the car, but now he has to manage his. The answer is, the loan helped him buy the car, but now he has to manage his debt. Let's move on to another pair confused by spelling and pronunciation. Can you pick up my from the dry cleaners? The word you need is suit, a matching set of clothes, jacket and pants or skirt. The other word, pronounced exactly like the word for candy, sweet, is suite, a set of connected rooms in a hotel or a collection of related things. The pronunciation similarity makes this pair particularly tricky. I found that students often know the difference intellectually, but mix them up in rapid speech. The key is understanding that suit rhymes with boot and fruit, while sweet rhymes with sweet and meat. Business travelers frequently encounter both words, which adds to the confusion. You might wear a business suit to a meeting and then return to your hotel suite. I remember a Korean business student who told me he left his suite in the suit, meaning he left his hotel suite wearing his suit, which created a humorous mix-up. The word suite has extended meanings beyond hotel rooms. In technology, we have software suites, like Microsoft Office Suite, which are collections of related programs. In music, a suite is a collection of related pieces. The common theme is always a set of related things. Suit also has extended meanings. Beyond clothing, it can refer to a lawsuit, such as filed a suit against the company, or in card games, hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades are the four suits. As a verb, suit means to be appropriate for, such as, that color suits you. Let's practice. He wore a navy blue suit to the interview. Our hotel suite had a beautiful ocean view. The context make the meanings clear. Clothing for formal occasions and luxurious accommodations for travelers. Now for the quiz. Why are you wearing your in our? The answer is, why are you wearing your suit in our suite?
Our next pair is, please keep your for reimbursement. The word is receipt, a document that proves you paid for something. Note the silent P in the pronunciation. Receipt sounds like receipt. The other word is recipe, which is a set of instructions for cooking or making something. The silent P in receipt causes endless spelling problems for students. English borrowed this word from French, and the P was historically pronounced while gradually becoming silent while remaining in the spelling. I tell my students to think of it as receive plus a t sound, which helps them remember both the spelling and pronunciation. The functional difference is clear. You keep a receipt for financial records, taxes, or returns, but you follow a recipe to create something. Receipts provide proof of transactions. Recipes provide instructions for creation. In today's digital world, both words have evolved. We now have e-receipts sent by email and online recipes with video instructions. But the core concepts remain the same: proof of purchase versus instructions for making. I've noticed an interesting pattern among my students. Those from cultures with strong cooking traditions sometimes struggle less with recipe because it's a concept they use frequently. However, receipt can be challenging for students from countries where receipts are less commonly used or where different business practices exist. From a business perspective, understanding receipt is crucial for anyone working in English-speaking countries. Tax laws, expense reports, and financial record-keeping all depend on proper receipt management. Meanwhile, recipe has metaphorical uses, too. We talk about a recipe for success or a recipe for disaster. Let's try this tricky quiz. I kept the for the ingredients and I followed the. Did you get it? I kept the receipt for the ingredients and I followed the recipe.
Number 10, another pronunciation puzzle: moral and morale. What can we do to improve workplace? We need to improve workplace morale. Morale, with a stress on the second syllable, is the confidence, enthusiasm, and spirit of a group. A moral, with a stress on the first syllable, is a lesson about right and wrong or a standard of ethical behavior. This distinction is absolutely critical in business and organizational contexts. As someone who has trained corporate teams, I can tell you that confusing these words in a business meeting can completely change your message. Saying we need to work on our moral when you mean morale suggests ethical problems rather than motivation issues. The pronunciation difference is subtle but important. Moral sounds like choral or floral with a stress on the first syllable. Morale sounds like it ends with row, but with a distinct second syllable stress that makes it sound almost like morale. Culturally, these concepts reflect different aspects of group dynamics. Morale is about emotional state and motivation. High morale means people are enthusiastic and engaged. Low morale means they're discouraged or unmotivated. Moral is about ethical standards, what's right and wrong, the lessons we learn from stories or experiences. You talk about the moral of the story, the lesson learned, but you boost employee morale, team spirit, and motivation. Military organizations particularly emphasize this distinction because both concepts are crucial. Soldiers need high morale to stay motivated and strong moral standards to guide their actions. I've worked with many international managers who initially confused these words, sometimes with embarrassing results. One executive told his team they needed to improve their moral, which implied they were unethical rather than unmotivated. Understanding this distinction is particularly important for leaders and managers. Here's the quiz. The leader's speech boosted the team's and taught an important lesson about The team's possession, teams, points to morale, their emotional state, and the lesson points to moral, ethical guidance.
Number 11 is resident and residences. The apartment complex are very friendly. The answer is residents, the people who live in a place. A residence is the place itself where someone lives. The confusion is that in spoken English, the plural residence sounds nearly identical to the singular residence in casual speech. Many non-native speakers struggle with this because the S sound at the end can blur the distinction between people and place. This is fundamentally a people versus place distinction. Residents are human beings who live somewhere. A residence is a building, house, apartment, or other dwelling place. Legal documents often use these terms precisely, so understanding the difference is important for anyone dealing with housing, visas, or legal matters. In immigration contexts, this distinction becomes crucial. Your residence might be an apartment on Main Street, but you are a resident of the United States or whatever country. Immigration forms often ask for your place of residence and your residency status. The first is asking where you live, place. The second is asking about your legal right to live there, your status as a resident or person. I remember helping a graduate student fill out housing applications, and she kept writing, "I am a resident of Massachusetts," instead of "I am a resident of Massachusetts." This kind of error can cause confusion in important documents. The pronunciation practice helps. Residence for the people and residence for the place. The final S sound versus final sound is subtle, but distinguishable with practice. So you could say, his official residence is in New York, the place where he lives. And also, the residents of New York must pay a new tax, the people who live there. Quiz. The new has space for 50.
The answer is the new residence, the place, has space for 50 residents, the people.
Our final pair, weather and climate. What's the like today? The keyword today tells us the answer is weather. Weather describes the short-term atmospheric conditions at a specific time and place. What's happening right now or over the next few days? Climate describes the long-term average weather patterns over many years or decades. This scientific distinction has become increasingly important in public discourse about environmental issues. And I've noticed that students often reflect their home country's approach to these topics. In some educational systems, this distinction is emphasized heavily, while in others, the words might be used more interchangeably. Weather changes daily, hourly, even minute by minute. You wake up and check the weather to decide what to wear. Climate is what you expect. Weather is what you get. If you move to a new city, you research its climate to understand what to expect over the year, but you check the weather to plan your weekend activities. The timescale difference is crucial. Weather forecasts look ahead 7 to 14 days maximum. Climate data looks at patterns over 30-plus years. This is why we can't use unusually cold winter to disprove climate change. One season's weather doesn't represent long-term climate trends. From a teaching perspective, I've found this distinction helps students understand many other English concepts about short-term versus long-term thinking. Americans often make this distinction in casual conversation without realizing it. The weather has been terrible this week versus, I love the climate here. It's sunny most of the year. You could say, we had to cancel the picnic because of the weather, today's rain. But you would say, we are concerned about the effects of climate change, long-term global patterns. The vocabulary around each word differs too. Weather can be good, bad, terrible, beautiful, unpredictable. Climate tends to be mild, harsh, tropical, temperate, changing. These adjective patterns reflect whether we're talking about immediate conditions or long-term patterns. Final quiz. The in the mountains changes quickly, but the is generally cold throughout the year. The quick changes point to weather, short term, while the year-long pattern points to climate, long term.
There are many more confusing words in English, and mastering these distinctions takes time and practice. The key is understanding that these aren't arbitrary differences. Each pair reflects different ways English speakers think about and categorize their experiences. If you'd like another lesson like this one, type "Let's go" in the comments. And of course, please like this lesson, share it with friends, and subscribe so you get notified every time I release a new lesson. And do you know any 21 confusing verbs? Find out in the next video. Remember, mastering these word pairs isn't just about memorizing definitions. It's about understanding how English speakers organize their thoughts and express different concepts. With practice and attention to context, these distinctions will become natural parts of your English fluency.